Dave, how you doing this morning? It's good to have you with us.
I'm doing great. It's good to be here, Ken.
Good, yeah. So Dave, we wanted to take a few minutes and talk a little bit about some of your experiences, some of the things that you've been through. So tell me a little bit about your background before you got started with the Elite Resource Team.
Sure. I got into the insurance industry in 1976, began as an agent, went from there to management almost within a few years. Got my securities license in the late 70s, early 80s. Occasionally wrote a policy here or there, got a client, but mostly supervise, manage, recruit, train advisors. In 2005, I decided to no longer stay in the management side of the industry and actually started building my own clientele.
Okay, good. So what made you decide to ultimately get involved with the Elite Resource Team? How did that transition occur?
Well, I'd met you and I'd met Anton. I've heard of the model before, working with CPAs more directly than I'd done in the past, and it piqued my interest. And thought I would give it a shot, see what it would be like to actually formalize my relationship with CPAs.
Good. So what have you learned about being in the model for a while? How has it been working with it, and what's your opinion?
Well, the model in general to me is far superior to just working with accountants and attorneys as I've done in the past. Like I said a minute ago, it's a more formalized approach. It's systematized. It's an easy paint by numbers approach to working with CPAs. And I find that very helpful. It requires less time improvising, more time actually digging into the case development with the clients.
Yeah, so you've been in the model for a little while now. What are some of the things, knowing what you know now, that maybe you might have done differently? Have you gained a little bit further understanding as you've gone along in the model?
I have. Well, first of all, I wish the model had been around in 1976 because it's much more gratifying working with directly with clients, and especially working with clients through the CPA relationships. I find it much more gratifying. Never mind the fact that it's much more lucrative for everyone. It's an opportunity really to dig deeper into strategies that I'd only really superficially been exposed to in the past.
Mm-hmm. Is there maybe some things that you would have done differently, even since you've been involved with the model, that you've gained a further understanding of?
I don't know. I feel like I've been following the model pretty well. It's always helpful to immerse yourself even more into the formal model. I think I improvised more than I wished I had, but I adhered pretty much to the principles.
So how have you evolved with the team-based model over time, would you say?
I've really developed through this model, I think, a fuller appreciation for what accountants need to do with their clients with regard to some of the strategies I proposed in the past. I really feel like I've got a better appreciation for more of the details that a strategy that I would have recommended in the past require. Taxation, etc. A lot of the understanding I had of different approaches for clients were based on marketing departments from insurance companies. They weren't quite as in-depth as they really would have been better to be. So I've gained a much richer appreciation for details of strategies that I had recommended in the past.
So let me ask you this. How have you benefited from the evolution of the elite resource team over the last few years?
Well, first of all, the case size has gotten exponentially larger, much more fascinating. I find working on solutions with clients are more fun now, more gratifying because they involve more of a team approach. Whereas in the past, I worked pretty much solo. I've come up with an idea, present it, and hope that it was accepted, not only by the client, but by their CPAs. That hope is no longer required. Now we have an understanding that we're all trying to together provide solutions to a client as opposed to selling something to a client, selling something to the CPA. There's no longer a sales approach. Now it's more of just a project approach.
Good, good. So let me ask you this. How would you accelerate or help a person accelerate their learning curve to expedite the application of success with this model, knowing what you know now?
I would recommend completely immersing yourself in the system, in all the training modules, right from the get-go. Don't ad-lib anything. Don't do anything on an ad hoc basis. Just dive directly into it. Don't postpone learning all the different aspects of the model. I do think it needs to be understood from the very beginning, the relationships with the CPAs. It's all in the material that you've provided. Yes, we have our own experiences with CPAs, and we feel like we understand them. I've learned that I had no understanding of a CPA to the level I do now, based upon the model. So I think give yourself into the model. It would be my recommendation.
Okay, great. So what are some of the things you're working on right now, and how has this model changed your life and your direction for the future? Some of the cases you're working on now, some of the sizes of the cases you're working on right now.
Well, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, the size of the cases from a commission standpoint and from a solution standpoint are exponentially larger now. Many zeros behind what I used to work on. I always had a pretty large average-sized case, if you will, relative to the industry. But this model has made those numbers much greater. As far as what I'm working on now, it's the same things I have been working on, and that's retirement planning through business, writing business insurance. Premium financing is one of the aspects. We're doing buy-sells. Of course, I've done those in the past, but the buy-sells now bring in other applications like permanent insurance, indexed UL, those types of things.
Okay.
Much greater extent than I did before.
Yeah. You're actually getting ready to close a couple of cases right now that are in excess, I think, of 300,000 target. Is that not correct?
Yes. About 400,000 a target.
Great. Yeah. So, talk to me a little bit about the increase in production, having first got involved with the Elite Resource Team, what you kind of looked at for expectations, and really how that was fulfilled, maybe faster or maybe a little slower than expectations initially getting into it.
Well, there's always an ebb and flow, as you and I've discussed in the past, as far as what you anticipate you're going to do, how long it takes to get there. But a few things have changed that are interesting. One is my expectations of what I can accomplish have certainly gone immeasurably up. I can remember when court of the table, for those of you who are familiar with life insurance MDRT numbers, really was a goal that I vaguely thought I had an opportunity to meet, and it certainly has been top of the table several times since then. And the expectations are that it will remain that way because the case sizes are so large. One thing I've had to adjust to is the duration or the incubation period of a case. It can take a year, sometimes longer. Whereas earlier in my career, I was taking cases maybe in a month or two. 3 months would be a long duration for writing a case. Numbers were smaller. The components of the case were much less intricate. But it's more fun. There is like I say, many more steps to a case now, and more people involved in the case. We've certainly got the accountants, and we got the other advisors, the other strategy team players. So it's more fun, takes a little longer, and the payoff is much greater.
So you've actually worked, I believe, with a couple of different types of programs that had this same model in mind. Why did you choose Elite Resource Team, or why would you say a person might choose Elite Resource Team maybe over any other type of program?
I would say Elite Resource Team has developed. It's not just new in development. In fact, it's evolving continuously, which is to me important. But I think the emphasis of Elite Resource Team is how actual cases get developed, how strategies get presented to clients. It's less theoretical than some of the other strategies I've seen before, some of the other models. It's one thing to understand and be trained, and I don't minimize the benefit of being trained in the importance of a team-based model. But Elite Resource Team, to me, has developed a much more thorough, sustainable model that allows us to go beyond the theory, to actually put things into practice. And those components are being changed all the time. They're being fine-tuned, they're being deepened, broadened. So it's a growing process. A year ago, I began working with one of your strategies, Hayden Rock, not yours, but Hayden Rock is one of the strategies that I got introduced to through Elite Resource Team. That's a whole nother, to me, opportunity for a CPA practice to enhance their planning with clients. And of course, that brings me and the whole Elite Resource Team strategists involved as well.
So let me ask you this question, Dave. What would you say to someone that's trying to make up their minds or trying to decide whether to do it, maybe even on their own, or work through Elite Resource Team and the team-based model, what the advantages might be to them and why they might choose one over the other?
Well, certainly approaching CPAs on a team-based basis, it would be a great idea for anyone to follow. I mean, I've heard of that concept for 20 years. I've assembled a few people here and there through my career, and I've helped agents do that through my agency. But to actually put this whole model together and put it into practice effectively, successfully, is not something you can do on your own. I'm sure there's not a person listening to this right now that doesn't have the talent to do some of the aspects of the model on their own. But doing really the aspects of the model on their own isn't going to bring it all together like I think the ERT model does. And unless you bring it all together, unless you bring all the components together at once and put them into play, you're not going to have the success at all that on your own. You're just going to, I think you're going to need to follow a blueprint. And the people who put this blueprint together are good at doing that. We're good in the field, we're good with CPAs, hopefully, but we can't do it all.
So it sounds like overall you've had a pretty good experience.
I have, certainly have, yes. And the fun part is it's evolving. It's not something you get bored with and figure out and get distracted with something else. It's something that you can stay committed to throughout your career.
Great. Well, Dave, I want to thank you for taking a little bit of time out of your day today and sharing a few of your thoughts and impressions and experiences with everybody listening. And I think, certainly they will certainly enjoy your point of view. So thank you so much for joining us today. And I want to thank you for listening. And we will talk to you soon.
Thank you.